Hi, welcome back to another EA Evolutionary Astrology Zoom meeting. Today we are doing Jupiter and Libra Part 3 with myself, Bradley Naragon. Thanks for joining us and being here, or listening, wherever you are. So, picking up where we left off, before we dive into Part 3, I want to do a little review and synthesis of Parts 1 and 2 and build upon the key concepts and ideas explored thus far. In Part 1, we started with this idea, Zeus, you asshole, the shadows of Jupiter and Libra. And we started off with the truth of Zeus's emergence within patriarchal culture. In evolutionary astrology, the core, undistorted Jupiter Sagittarius ninth house archetype correlates to natural laws. The myth of Zeus exemplifies the hypocrisy and distortions of natural laws within the dominant cultures in the era and region he emerged in. Evil manifestations of the Jupiter Sagittarius ninth house archetype include colonialism, expansion through domination, exploitation, and forced assimilation. The 19th century term manifest destiny captures the entitlement within this distorted belief structure. Killing in the name of God, clearly the dark side of Jupiter Sagittarius ninth house archetype. I don't recall ever hearing killing in the name of the goddess. The nature of evil is such that it twists and distorts what is natural and then calls that natural. Eventually, this becomes the new normal, Saturn Capricorn. The base premise of astrology, as above, so below, speaks to the holographic nature of the universe. Just as astrology works because the heavenly alignment above mirrors the unfolding events below, so the myths and stories within cultures mirror their changing social and political dynamics. Myths and religions are not static. Evolving myths mirrors cultural evolution. Going deeper into the origins of Zeus's birth on the island of Crete, we explored how Athena, born from Zeus's head, became a new incarnation for the goddess of the Minoan culture of Crete, which the Mycenaeans destroyed. Similar to how Virgin Mary, Mother Mary, took on many expressions of the goddess within the confines of Christianity, Athena took on allowed expressions of the goddess under the new regime. Personally, I do love Athena and all the manifestations of the goddess. Don't get me wrong in thinking I was showing disrespect to Athena. In whatever form the dominant patriarchal culture allows for the expression of the goddess, through this form the goddess has spoken and still speaks to the hearts and spirits of the people. In Athena, we saw the allowable expression of the Minoan goddess, whom was far more empowered, connected to sacred sexual energy, and rooted in a matrilineal source, pre-patriarchal takeover. Symbolically, Athena is an effort by dominant patriarchal culture to shift cultural understanding of the feminine away from the root power of her true origins. A key theme to this whole series has been the correlation of the Sagittarius Jupiter ninth house archetype to story. Specifically, the inner story we are constantly engaging in and fitting life experiences into, the story we believe about ourselves and the greater us. The Jupiter Sagittarius ninth house archetype correlates to the right brain. The right brain is constantly making sense of the world around us, taking all the information experienced and received through the senses and interpreting its meaning. A meaning which is relative to each individual's consciousness, beliefs, perspective, and truth. A truth we are invested in maintaining. Our stories of our own experiences are true to us. We are all challenged to some degree to see the relativity of our own truths as limited by our pasts and our perceptions. By clinging to our perspectives, we limit the expansion of our consciousness, limit the rate of our evolution, and often project onto others our story of life. However, people don't always fit into the story. We can't predict how people will act. Through this projection of our story, we are co-creating the experiences we have with others before we have even begun to have them. In evolutionary astrology, everything evolves through polarity. In the case of the Jupiter Sagittarius 9th house archetype, the polarity is Mercury Gemini 3rd house. Through this polarity, we each encounter new information and perspectives which lie outside of our present understanding. This provides the potential to both expand consciousness and learn the relativity of individual truth. Part of the inherent resistance to this natural process of evolution can be understood through exploring the yod between Sagittarius, Taurus, and Cancer. The stories we have written to make sense of life are part of our identity and ego, Cancer 4th house, and part of how we survive, Taurus 2nd house archetype. Simplified, our beliefs are directly connected to our survival and our identity. In conjuncts, whether operating personally or socially, gibbous or full phase, bring a necessary crisis, which requires making some adjustments. Often these crises bring with them an experience of humiliation, inwardly in the gibbous phase or socially in the full phase. This humiliation is part of the catalyst which spurs one toward needed analysis and adjustment. Needless to say, it is not necessarily an easy process to reconsider one's personal story and the need to redraft parts of it. These natural inconjuncts, in a sense, correlate to the ongoing editing process of us writing our own stories of our life. Trans-Saturn planets represent evolutionary catalysts which introduce into our mundane reality experiences that require us to change, evolve, and update our story and beliefs. Uranus, the sudden shift, the unpredictable element of life, is one of these common agents of transformation. Neptune, the great dissolver, is another. This Neptunian process often involves disillusionment. When part of our clouded vision is cleared, we have a glimpse of seeing a much larger universal meaning beyond what we previously believed. Of course, the response can be further denial of the ultimate truth. Pluto, the higher octave of Mars, brings in the element of reliving our stories mixed with deep soul yearnings to do what we came here to do. These deep desires within the soul spur us to write a new story in this lifetime, not just rewriting the plot of our last lives. Through lifetimes of trial and error, we slowly learn. Through the karma of our past choice making, we slowly learn. Zeus is a token of a larger phenomena within humanity in which dominant male cultures control and devalue feminine story. Zeus and the roots of this sky god symbolize the dimming of awareness within the collective consciousness of humanity. A progressive departure from living in harmony with natural laws and separating from the natural world. The long-term effects of this conditioning within the collective consciousness have been and continue to be harmful for all. In the modern realm, conscious men who had never physically hurt another still find themselves at times mansplaining to women. Pervasive within the mundane dialogue are examples of devaluing the perspective of the feminine and objectification of the feminine. Relative to Jupiter in Libra, the harm of this phenomena is oft perpetuated by maintaining social harmony. Especially now, with Eris and Uranus at the polarity in Aries, the disruption of the superficial social harmony is part of the evolutionary path. If you recall from part 2, we explored the meaning of Eris as part of this Aries polarity. In the last 500 plus years of colonialism in the United States, African American and the Native American populations represent the deepest rooted Eris aspect in the USA, repeatedly disowned, devalued, and rejected parts of the whole. Remember that the healing path for Eris is to be invited back into the collective, to be recognized and listened to. In the myth, the chaos and strife Eris brought to others stemmed from her exclusion. The healing of the excluded is now through the inclusion. Zeus was valued as ruling over heaven and earth and bringing order to nature. The Eris myth also represents the Western culture's rejecting the natural element of chaos, valuing control and order over the uncontrollable aspects of life. Relative to Jupiter in Libra, this is a time ripe with storytelling. We are hearing for the first time many stories which have been ignored and silenced in the past. With these stories comes learning from these new points of view. Today in the USA, we can see these agents of collective evolution exemplified in new mainstream films and shows such as 13th, Get Out, Lemonade, Dear White People, and Detroit, to name just a few. In part 2, we explored the oppression and invisibility of African Americans as it correlates to Eris. The nations and tribes indigenous to the present-day USA is another uninvited group that the Eris-Uranus-Aries polarity correlates to. In correlating groups of people with Eris, I'm focusing on these two because their stories have had over 500 years of extreme tragedy and oppression in my own country of origin. Universally, whatever subculture is systematically harmed, destroyed, marginalized, and oppressed correlates to the Eris element within that collective. Presently, historians estimate the Americas were at a population between 50 and 100 million prior to European contact and takeover. Just like Eris was made out to be a danger and a threat, so too have the indigenous tribes have repeatedly been portrayed as dangerous and to be feared by the white settlers. Sadly, we know there are very similar stories all over the world. The destruction of colonialism. According to the 2010 census in the USA, the total combined American Indian and Alaskan Native populations, either alone or in combination with other races, was 5.2 million. That constitutes about 1.7% of the current US population. The indigenous population dropped perhaps more than 100 times its past size. Today, there's 562 federally recognized indigenous nations in the USA, which are out of sight and out of mind. Most of the population remains oblivious to the present suffering and issues faced following centuries of genocide. One contemporary example of indigenous people's voices being ignored within mainstream culture is the activism and protests at Standing Rock regarding the Dakota Access Pipeline. Originally, the pipeline was to go north of Bismarck, but the route was changed out of concern for the local water supply. Rerouting the pipeline toward the local tribes' land exemplifies putting the protection of white people's resources once again ahead of the indigenous peoples. News of the protests at Standing Rock reached national and global awareness via social media while being ignored and or spun and twisted in the country's mainstream media. Apparently, if your problems are ignored by the dominant culture for centuries, you need the whole world to notice the problem before being given the time of day. Chopping at the roots of patriarchy. As stated, a positive path to this time is equalizing knowledge and power. Sharing knowledge as a path to return power to those places it has been taken away. Jupiter in Libra equals knowledge sharing. All these efforts, small and large, are part of a larger collective process. Process I'm referring to as chopping at the roots of patriarchy. Jeffrey Wolf Green taught that the beginnings of patriarchal cultures on Earth occurred during the Capricorn subage of the Cancer Age, roughly around 7000 BC. He also taught that the transiting south nodes of Pluto and Saturn in Capricorn represent a time link between the present era and the roots of patriarchy. Pluto transiting Capricorn now symbolizes two forces collectively opposing, just as Pluto individually symbolizes two opposing desires within the soul. The desire to cling to the past or the desire to evolve. On the one hand, Pluto in Capricorn represents compulsively holding on to the current social structures for the continuation of the power and security they have provided. Obviously, those who gain power from this paradigm are more likely to cling to it. On the other hand, Pluto in Capricorn represents the evolutionary forces at work breaking down the old social models, structures, and institutions. Pluto in Capricorn alone represents a great tension between the past and the present conditions of reality. A tension now amplified by the 2017 T-square between Jupiter in Libra, Uranus and Eris in Aries, and Pluto in Capricorn. All this tension is also gathering in intensity as we approach Pluto's transit to these south nodes of Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn, and to the United States' first Pluto return, which also has Pluto in Capricorn. The upshot of all this, it's pretty hard to sit around and do nothing as the glass ceiling gets higher still. And yes, we do need a real revolution. However, astrologers can tell you that revolutions historically don't come full swing until Pluto enters Aquarius. 2024 is the start of Pluto in Aquarius. In the meantime, the revolution can and does begin now in our hearts and minds. Anytime we have a chance to bring the missing stories to the collective conversation, we're taking steps toward the end of patriarchy by increasing awareness of what needs change and what that might look like. Of course, there are so many small revolutions and great revolutionaries at work now, presently. We are blessed by their efforts, and they often don't make the news. Thank you. This here is a picture of Vincent Harding. It says, close confidant of Martin Luther King, historian and nonviolent activist, died at the age of 83, May 19th, 2014. There is another danger to be aware of at this time. Capricorn also correlates to judgment and shame, whilst Uranus, especially in Aries, correlates to alienation leading to separation, going our own ways. When we confront patriarchy and these deep-rooted forms of oppression, it is easy for someone being directly confronted regarding behaviors to go on the defensive, a reaction to feeling judged and shamed or attacked. As I understand it, calling out oppressive behavior is a direct form of communication. Typically in the moment, one has the courage, strength, and the words to do so, often in front of peers. Sometimes directly calling out hurtful behavior in a moment is the best tool to raise awareness for such behaviors. When someone's called out amongst peers or in a group, there is a potential the guilty party goes into feelings of alienation and shame, feeling shunned for their behavior. And maybe they should be ashamed in a moment, waking up to the impact their behavior has on others. However, sometimes more growth is possible by taking another path. Even addressing oppressive behavior one-on-one, if the other primarily feels judged and attacked, it likely will result in separation, defensiveness, and resistance to learning. This would be the shadow of the Uranus in Aries in opposition to the Jupiter in Libra. Instead of Libran sharing, fueling the Aries process of individual self-discovery, the way we teach and share results in the Aries fight or flight reaction, i.e. more separation instead of inclusion. Recently, a coworker emailed out an article, and I'm going to say the name best I can, I'm not exactly, Nok Lon Tron, about calling in. When I read this, it was a new concept to me, calling in, and I really appreciated the wisdom of the article. The concept of calling in is very Libran and emphasizes meeting each other as equals. By calling someone in, we reveal and share some of our own humanity. Talking about the impact of behavior doesn't need to make someone feel lesser of a human, albeit the degree of this reaction also reflects a person's maturity and ability to hear critical feedback. Calling in can start with questions. What was someone's intention with their word choice and or actions? Simple, but helpful to remember. Starting with questions can help avoid leading with assumptions. Then, when we actually understand where someone was coming from, we can share with them our experience, what we observed and witnessed when such and such just happened. Calling in requires Libran patience and belief that we are all, in our root, equal human beings at various places of awareness and understanding on this journey. Now, if you are the recipient of oppressive behavior, depending on all the dynamics at play, there is a probability one will not have any desire to connect and share in a way which is filled with patience and compassion in that moment. Ideally, in moments like this, there are allies who can fill this role of exposing the impact of harmful behavior in a way that can be heard and understood. The root of the word ally means bind together. Through the work of allies in encountering oppression, we have the opportunity to stay connected, Libra. Nok Lon Tron's writing exemplifies the positive aspects of the Libra archetype and Jupiter in Libra. In their article, Winning with Each Other, another great article, published on wagingnonviolence.org, they address relationship building within activism, when different groups perceive needs differently. This message feels so vital for the present moment. Remember, the intention of the present moment, relative to Jupiter in Libra, is that we can reach a shared vision while honoring the diversity within the whole. With Jupiter in Libra, one shadow is having assumptions we are aware of, assuming that we actually understand another or that we perceive what is best for another, proceeding based on beliefs, which are not actually true. Noklon Tron writes, quote, "We cannot assume that knowing each other's historical and current political, economic, or social struggles makes us in solidarity with each other. We cannot make these assumptions when our transformation and our livelihoods depend on us authentically showing up at the table for each other." End quote. Love that. It's beautiful. So we're going to look at two charts today, which have Jupiter and Libra. These two individuals represent polarity, potential manifestation regarding Jupiter and Libra. First, Donald Trump, current president of the United States. First off, we can see from Pluto and Leo in the 12th house, there is a potential to see a soul desiring fame, Leo, and attention as a source of power, Pluto, and even to be idolized, even considered godlike. This is re-emphasized with Mars in Leo and a new phase to Pluto also in the 12th house. Now draw your attention here. We go to the south node. It's in Sagittarius in the 4th house, and it's conjunct the moon in Sag in the 4th house. Coming from a place of the expanding ego, apparently one's ego can keep getting bigger and bigger. That is a potential, and if there was ever symbols which would suggest that, moon in Sag conjunct the south node in Sag in the 4th house is one of these combinations. So we see that in Mr. Trump's chart, Jupiter is the ruler of that south node, Jupiter falling in Libra in the 2nd, conjunct Juno and Chiron. Swing back to understanding how Libra in the 2nd could be values of fairness and equality. Add in Jupiter within the laws. We could have a chart with this and see someone who values social justice greatly. However, we know Libra can also mean the extremes. And Jupiter and Sag can be truth and honesty as well as lies and dishonesty. Now, the interesting thing about this, to me, is that it falls in the 2nd house. In evolutionary astrology, the 2nd house is where we find out about one's relationship to their self. I would conclude that Mr. Trump has a pattern of being not only dishonest with others, he is repeatedly telling himself a false story over and over until the point he believes his own lies. He may even convince himself he's working towards social justice. In a Politico article, Trump's Lies versus Your Brain, Maria Konnikova writes, quote, "The sheer frequency, spontaneity, and seeming irrelevance of his lies have no precedent. Nixon, Reagan, and Clinton were protecting their reputations. Trump seems to lie for the pure joy of it. A whooping 70% of Trump's statements that PolitiFact checked during the campaign were false, while only 4% were completely true and 11% mostly true." End quote. As we know, Mr. Trump represents the extreme case of dishonest, which Jupiter in Libra could represent. His presidency began with Jupiter in Libra, his Jupiter return. Taller tales will be told. If we have time, and you want to, I'd love to revisit Trump's chart uh, because the symbolism within it, and his story of protecting America, making it great again, and the wall, all have very interesting correlations. But for now, we're going to flip over to Beyonce, Knowles Carter. I really got excited looking into Beyonce's last album and film, Lemonade, because, well, first, it's just brilliant in so many ways, more than we have time to go through today. But what I did want to do was, I wanted to look at this and through Beyonce's Jupiter and Libra in the 12th house and other planets in her chart as they were expressed in Lemonade, her latest release. This is a 10 a.m. chart for Beyonce, and it does have a Rodin rating of a C. However, I would argue that the lyrical themes she writes about, sings about, and teaches could most certainly be 12th house Libra themes, which you will see. Beyonce's birth year, 1981, is a year many of you may be familiar with, especially because of the striking Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in Libra during Pluto's latest sojourn in Libra. Adding onto this, Venus conjunct Pluto in Libra and Mercury in Libra. Yes, that's a ton of Libra. Beyonce exudes grace and beauty, Venusian and Libran qualities. Libra in the 12th house means that there is an idealization of relationship, a spiritualization and or fantasy in relationship, and also a pattern of a disillusionment within relationship. This disillusionment in relationship would be directly connected to fairness, equality, and issues of honesty and trust. Honesty coming back to Jupiter, and trust relative to the Venus-Pluto conjunction, that also ruling the Scorpio moon. Also, with Saturn right there in Libra in the 12th, there is a theme of accountability and karma within relationships, which we'll see when we get into the lyrics a bit here. Just studying the lyrics on Lemonade, the very first verse of the whole album on Pray You Catch Me is, you can taste the dishonesty. So immediately she's addressing the issue of dishonesty in relationships. In the chorus, Beyonce sings, pray you catch me whispering, pray you catch me listening. Here we have prayer correlated to the 12th house, as well as whispering and listening, Libra 12th house themes. And all this circles back to the honesty theme and having some karma play out for the situation at hand, Saturn and Libra in the 12th house. In the song, Don't Hurt Yourself, more 12th house themes come out in lyrics like, when you love me, you love yourself, love God herself. The Saturn in Libra karma theme also shows up again with, when you diss me, you diss yourself, don't hurt yourself. When you hurt me, you hurt yourself, don't hurt yourself, don't hurt yourself. And the Jupiter in Libra theme, again, with beautiful man, I know you're lying. In Sorry, we hear a touch of Scorpio-Pluto revenge, combined with Jupiter and Libra lying theme, and Saturn and Libra karma and fairness with, quote, now I'm the one that's lying, and I don't feel bad about it. It's exactly what you get. Again, we hear dishonesty theme and prayers for truth. The lyric here is, he always got them fucking excuses. I pray to the Lord, you reveal what his truth is. On Love Drought, Beyonce sings, 10 times out of 9, I know you're lying, but 9 times out of 10, I know you're trying, so I'm trying to be fair. It sounds like some 12th house compassion, forgiveness, and sacrifice themes there within relationship in that lyric. you wanted even more evidence pointing to these planets in the 12th house, consider how perfect just the song title Sandcastles correlates to Saturn and Libra in the 12th house. We built sandcastles that washed away. What Beyonce has done with the film Lemonade is simply awesome. She's gone beyond singer, songwriter, performer. She's created something that's furthering social justice, equality and fairness in relationships, empowering and inspiring all women, especially African-American women. What Beyonce has done is just awesome. So that brings end to the slideshow for now. And just invite anybody, if you have any comments or questions or anything you want to talk about, go for it. Otherwise, we can do whatever.
Bradley, could you please click on stop share?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
So any comments, anybody?
Sorry.
It's should be at the top there in red.
Darn it. Oh, okay. I got you. Okay. Thanks. All right.
Great. Any comments or questions?
Awesome presentation. Just absolutely awesome.
The Jupiter in Libra is attacking my Uranus opposition, so I'm especially interested to hear about it. So, yeah, thanks for the material.
The Uranus in Libra?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I have Chiron right in the middle of it, and then my own Chiron, natal Chiron in the middle of it, and then I have Jupiter sitting on the, yeah, so it's weird energy. You know, that first house stuff versus seventh house, you know, Aries versus Libra, it's strange.
Also in your Uranus opposition, yeah?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it's to me like Jupiter's just intensifying it.
Yeah, I have that too, Tara. Jupiter on my south node, emphasizing that skip step with Pluto. So we both have that emphasis.
It's funny, you think Jupiter and Libra be all nice and diplomatic about things, but it doesn't necessarily feel that way.
No. I agree.
I don't know, what do you think, Bradley? People always say, you know, that Jupiter is benefic, but in my transits, oftentimes I find that Jupiter is the, because it does expand whatever is there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that its flavor for me has, like, I don't know, like Saturn's more my comfort zone than Jupiter, so.
Yeah, I mean, I know it definitely brings opportunity, but also, right, it's not, I mean, I've had a lot of horrible Venus transits. I mean, by my own doing, you know.
Yeah, of course.
But
talking about how Libra used to be, what was it, the chariot wheel, and it was like a war. And I've also heard Libra referred to as the fist in the velvet glove.
Oh.
You know, it's and I have 2 Libra sisters, and I've seen that fist in the velvet glove. You know, it's like the punch is there, but it's diplomatic.
Mm-hmm. But there's still the nature of Libra is to, I mean, it's a different kind of judgment, but it definitely still judges. So it's an interesting, when we have it out there for everybody, that energy, I mean, it does like to judge on a certain level what it considers to be good or bad, or pleasing or not pleasing, or.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think all the cardinal signs can be like that. It can be pretty harsh.
Yeah, I agree. And Jupiter also co-rules Pisces, so I think I always have really bad Jupiter transits.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Not always, mostly. But
I love Jupiter transits.
Jupiter and Pisces.
Speaking the South Node of Sag person.
It seems like, right, what's been kind of going on too, and you definitely brought that up in your presentation. If you look at Jupiter as the co-ruler of Pisces, it's been the dropping of the veil of the so-called social niceties and how we're supposed to act in society, but it's really, not beneficial to everyone, and it's kind of opening up those false beliefs that we've had, about each other and relationships, and expanding that.
Yeah.
Sorry about my scratchy microphone, guys. I really appreciated the piece about Eris and the connection with the Native Americans and the African American cultures. I really appreciated that. That was really informative for me. And, it puts a whole nother spin on Eris. I mean, not that there's been a bad spin, but I don't know a lot about it. I've only read some about it, but that definitely expanded my depth and understanding of it, of her.
Yeah, I suppose, I mean, in general, on all levels, personal and collectively, we do need a lot of rebalancing. So,
What would you think, Bradley? Do you think Libra is the sign of integration?
Oh, that's a good question. Integration. I guess I don't think of it as integration because it's cardinal and it's initiatory and it's just entering the second half of the zodiac, and so it feels like it's kind of like starting and launching into the social sphere as much as. It seems like Libra needs to learn integration as it initiates, balance itself out. So maybe it's involved like that. I have to think about that.
but Bradley, don't you think that it kicks off what's going to be integrated in Sag? That's how I always think about it. I think it kicks,
Right.
so it's like it's moving what's going to come to it.
That makes sense. Okay, yeah, because then that's that quarter of the. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for your 3 meetings on Jupiter and Libra, which I feel are really helping us to integrate these issues within us. And I love the way you presented it. It's a lot of information. And we can just sit back and just, it's very helpful. So thanks so much. And I'd love to see you do look at Donald Trump's chart in the future. That would be fantastic.
Sure.
I'd like to hear your perspective.
You go a little further with that. Yeah, it's fascinating, really, to look at it. I'm like, wow, to see inside the person a little bit.
Bradley, there's always a negative and a positive, for every archetype. But how do you, I suppose through observation and correlation, you can then make a judgment as to, what is the truth or not. But would you automatically correlate something, the negative side of an archetype, saying that it is there within the person or not?
Okay, I'll answer what I think you're saying, and tell me if I'm answering the right question. You know, my own experience of it is that, like, we have the full spectrum in us. So, you know, if we have, you know, the symbol of Jupiter in Libra in our own chart, you know, we're well aware of a part of us that could be dishonest or, you know, embellish some kind of story that we're sharing, and we're aware of both sides of it within ourselves, and it's kind of the choice that we make. Although, yeah, is that what you're getting at? Or?
Yes, exactly. Yes. So that answered it, actually. So we do encompass both sides.
That's my understanding of it. I mean, I had one reading recently that went really bad, and I think that I pitched this idea of, you know, like the other aspects of this archetype are living within you, and I did a reading years ago with the person, and I wasn't doing evolutionary astrology, and I don't think they like evolutionary astrology. You know, I was getting into, like, what are these other pieces of yourself, you know, and it didn't fly so well. And so, but that brings up a point is, and, you know, Patricia Walsh's work has really helped me think about this a lot, you know, where it's like, one of the things I really remember from working with Patricia is just like, most people, when they start doing regressions, they go to victim lifetimes, and it takes a while before you'll regress to a perpetrator lifetime. So, like, we have this whole story that we don't want to put ourselves in that position, and yet chances are at some point in time we've played out these roles, and we've been that person that we now choose that we don't not to be, and we don't want to be, but we also don't want to remember it. But sometimes we are that person and we still remember it.
Interesting. Yeah, because I have my moon in the 9th house, and I've got Jupiter and Libra in the 12th house, and I have Saturn in Sag. So, but I find my Saturn is very honest, and it's learnt through, you know, hard experience to be honest, and it's my rule, you know, it's like a rule. I guess the Jupiter in the 12th could be a little bit slippery, you know. So I guess it depends on where these archetypes lie in the chart.
Mm-hmm.
I do also think that's why, like, observation correlation is so essential, because we're all our chart. It's just how it manifests, and that's also a state of evolution really has to kind of come into play, you know.
Yeah, Olive, I totally agree. I think also, like, that as far as which direction something takes has a lot to do with how safe the ego feels in that moment, you know, so that so changes everything. You know, if I'm feeling safe and comfortable, then, you know, more natural, what we call positive side of my Jupiter may come out. But if I feel threatened on some level, I mean, that's just our nature.
Mm-hmm.
With Uranus and Aries, I have been feeling very threatened over the last few months, and I'm shutting down. I tend to be shutting down because that Uranus is squaring the Cancer Capricorn. It's squaring the Pluto. And I don't know, it can be quite intense, like too intense. Yeah, for my Cancer moon. So I tend to shut down a bit there with it. Yeah.
But we can see, like, even simple things like lying. I mean, oftentimes that's just protecting some image or some level of something we're not comfortable with. So there's so many layers to all those pieces.
Yeah, exactly.
But I could totally see, Bradley, how with a client, you know, I mean, I know with mine sometimes you bring things up and they absolutely do not want to hear it. Doesn't matter if it's true, like, because that's not really relevant. Like, you either want it or you don't want it.
Exactly.
Wouldn't that be the integration point of listening to another perspective, to give when you're able to see something from another perspective, it can give you insight, into yourself. But we have to be willing to listen to that other perspective. So maybe that's kind of where I think the integration, comes in.
Yeah, I think it's a factor of maybe not being ready to hear it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it threatens. That's what I'm saying. It threatens something big. It threatens that you will, destroy something you've built about yourself. So most of us have, whether we want to admit it or not, have attachments to that, and we don't know what specific trigger is going to be the one that threatens to take it down. I mean, I know those parts. I mean, I'm sure there's lots more, but I encounter those parts in myself on a pretty regular basis.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, with Wanda and what you got said, because I think that if you're just not ready, even if you hear something from outside, it doesn't land. You're actually, there's no ability to receive it. Like if we go back to the talk you did, Tara, about cancer stuff, I mean, my stuff is so multi-layered. I mean, it's taken me 50 years to understand my chart, and not just from an intellectual place, but to actually mature through it. I mean, of course, it's all been building on itself for all this time and 30 years of a lot of work, and I'm still learning how to grow up. And no matter how much therapy or what someone else has said, it's timing. And can I actually do something with it, Because for me, it's not intellectual process. And I think it's that way for many people. And I guess that's why we have so many lifetimes of learning the same lessons, right? I mean, even if we talked about Trump's chart, I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of layers there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's lots of facets of the issue, so we get to experience it from each different facet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
That was perfect, Sue. It just made things fit just then.
Well, yeah, and that's what I learned with Patricia too, Bradley, is that you have all these lifetimes surrounding a complex, and it's to view it from each many different perspectives.
Yeah.
Okay, so is there going to be a part 4?
Donald Trump part 4.
I don't know.
We've still got a few more months to go, haven't we? We've got another 5-6 months, something like that. But yeah, we need to look into Donald Trump's chart. That would be great.
Has it been done in the group yet?
Yes, Ari Moshe did one, but I'm encouraging people to redo meetings because they're coming from a different perspective and at a different time. So yeah. So
and he's got that eclipse right on his ascendant, so that's going to be interesting this summer.
Okay, if there aren't any more questions or comments anymore, going.
I just had one thought that just popped in my head with Jupiter Libra, and how it, to me, kind of funnels into Capricorn and the true meaning of Capricorn, and what Wendy had said really kind of defined that. Getting all of those, you start the process of getting these other perspectives, and in the Jupiter Sag archetype, you really expand that even further, outside of the one-on-one relationships initiated in Libra. Then you go into the Capricorn archetype, and you take that all in too, and really take it in, really, be ready to hear. At that point, you should be ready to hear it, ready to do something with it. and that's how you really mature your, self-image and form that container, for the self-image. That's just something that just popped in my mind, listening to you all.
Yeah, I agree with that. That was brilliant. Really good.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Okay, Bradley, thank you so very much. That was absolutely amazing. We just loved the 3-part Jupiter in Libra that you presented, so thank you so much. And everybody, could
Pleasure
you
to be here.
please,
Thank you.
could you all please thank Bradley?
Thank you, Bradley.
Thank you, Bradley.
Thank you so much.
Really great.
Wonderful. See you again soon. Bye, everyone.
Okay, take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.